Welcome to Family Business Diaries, the podcast where we unravel secrets of family businesses. I'm your host, Mary Asante Asamoah, and today, guess where we are? We're in Tema with the Dr. Michael McCarthy. Get ready for an exciting episode. Come on.
On today's episode of Family Business Diaries, we welcome a man whose life's work sits at the intersection of healing, leadership, and legacy. Dr. Michael McCarthy, a distinguished obstetrician gynecologist and CEO of Sinel Specialist Hospital. Dr. McCarthy brings over 27 years of experience across 3 continents, widely respected for his expertise in uterine fibroids, infertility, and pregnancy management. He stands as one of Ghana's leading voices in women's health. Beyond medicine, he is also a devoted family man and co-founder of Vine Christian Schools, built alongside his wife, Georgette McCarthy, a testament to their shared commitment to shaping both mind and values for over 2 decades. Under his leadership, Senel has grown into a world-class healthcare institution, pioneering advanced surgical care and setting new benchmarks in patient-centered services. His impact extends even further through national health initiatives and collaborations with institutions like GCB Bank, championing awareness and education across communities. Today, we dive into the journey of a doctor, a builder, and a family man, shaping lives both in the hospital and beyond.
Dr. McCarthy, thank you so much for honoring our invitation and coming today. No, not coming actually, for hosting us today. Thank you very much for having us here. We're quite excited. All right, so Dr. McCarthy, today is the day. We want to know Dr. McCarthy beyond the title, beyond, all the flamboyant stuff. Who's Dr. McCarthy? Tell us about yourself.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you for coming and thank you for inviting me for this. I think discussing stories like these are really important. I'm the son of Dr. T.O. McCarthy, who is the founder
Yes.
of Sinel Specialist Family Hospital, and also the son of Mrs. Nellie McCarthy, who is my mom,
Yeah.
who is also one of the founders of Sinel Specialist Family Hospital. In fact, it will interest you to know that the name Sinel is partly my mom's name. So the N-E-L is the Nelly.
Ooh.
And the initial 2 letters, that is the S-I, are for Sylvia.
Who's Sylvia?
Who is the wife of my dad's best friend, I would say, or one of his best friends, who was also going to come to start the hospital. So they started with that
That's
name.
so
They
cute.
used those names, the names of their wives. I think that is really nice, and that kind of tells you what Sinel is. It's family.
Yes.
We're always thinking about the family and how to make it, have that feel and that effect and that focus. Always the focus on the person, the focus on the people. And I believe that's why he was extremely satisfied at the beginning. So when you ask who is Michael McCarthy, we need to trace it from that angle.
Okay.
And that's my name, Michael McCarthy. I'm also a doctor. I'm also an obstetrician gynecologist, just like my dad was.
Interesting, right?
Yes. And that's also an interesting story. We'll come to how it came into that alignment. I'm also married to Mrs. Georgette McCarthy, who is the CEO of Vine Christian School. We'll talk about that also. The co-founder with me, or maybe better to say, of Vine Christian School and Vine Christian High School, which we continue to run together, which we've done for the past 20 years.
Yes.
Sinel Specialist Hospital is 43 years or so this year, probably even more, 44 this year. So we're not a young hospital.
1982, right?
Yes, 1982. And so we've been able to go through transitions and and succession and handover and so on. My passion now also is for people in various ways. You can see it in what we do in the school, in Vine Christian School with Georgette, and what we are doing in Sinel. In fact, the hospital started as Sinel Specialist Hospital. That was the name of the hospital. But in the past few years, we have added the word family. And so it's now Sinel Specialist Family Hospital. Just to show some growth in focus of what we had wanted to do. My dad started Sinel Specialist Hospital in 1982. In fact, he had that dream all through medical school. And when he was training as an obstetrician gynecologist,
he knew what he wanted.
And he knew what he wanted to do. He was training in Europe, in Switzerland specifically.
Wow. Most people won't come
and his vision and his dream was to set up a women's hospital in Ghana.
Back then,
that was his dream. And all his professors and all the significant people working with him, the nurses and all that, all knew that he was going to come back to Ghana and he was going to set up a women's hospital. And that was the deal at the time. And of course, he had that support from them also in goodwill and so on. And so when he came back to Ghana in 1977, that was his chief, let me say, driving force. Though he did work for the government for a while, he finally set up the hospital in 1982. And it was in a smaller house in Community 1, Tema, that had been converted into consulting room, 2 wards, a theater and a labor ward. Really small, very practical.
Gets the job done.
He made it work. It was amazing.
Wow.
I mean, it was a new thinking about how to set up a hospital. It was a hospital only for women. That was his goal. He was not setting up a general hospital, a family hospital. He was setting up a hospital for women. And that was his goal because he was trained as an obstetrician and that was his vision. In fact, he was told, "Oh no, you can't succeed if you set up a hospital only for women. You need to treat other stuff as well
to make money."
But he said no. His vision and his training was to have a hospital for women, and that's what he did. It was such a blessing because finally there was a focus on women.
In 1982,
44 years ago, and it was revolutionary. I would say now it's no more that revolutionary because every other hospital that came up, I'm exaggerating though, ended up being a hospital for women. It's a women's hospital, is this and is that, and it was all, but at the time it was revolutionary and extremely successful because he could focus and he could solve difficult problems because he had the expertise and the training and so, and that was, who he was. And so he was, I would say, a big success in that time. Some of the ways I look at success is he was able to generate a large number of new registrations monthly. I went through the statistics and you could see a certain pattern happening. And I dare say we are probably not achieving as much in terms of absolute numbers, now as compared to then. And
things have changed now.
Of course, things have changed, but that was amazing. And the kind of surgeries he used to do, complicated deliveries he used to achieve, and different diagnostic tools that he had. Now, those were the times when things were quite hard.
I was about to say
in Ghana. It was hard. If you were in the 80s, you understand what I mean by hard.
When he set up the hospital, but
the 80s was a hard time. And to his credit, he got it to work. Even getting hospital supplies, as simple as intravenous fluids, which is the basic thing, so what you would call the drip.
Yep.
Even that was a whole endeavor. He had to take a trip to the factory. It was in Koforidua at the time, I believe. And drive there and purchase the fluids and IV fluids and carry them back.
Now, it was passion to get
no
this thing done.
that was passion.
Because
That was passion. It was not, oh, let's do this for money. No, it was, this is what he wanted to do, and he was ready to go to any length possible to make this happen. And I'll say to his credit, even there were times in those days when you couldn't, there were even curfews. You couldn't even move out of home, and he kept the hospital running even through that time.
wow.
I always say that.
Now you have your story though with COVID, so you can also talk about restrictions.
Well, we have that story too, yes, but I think.
But back then was different.
I think it was way, way more difficult,
Yes.
to get all these things running and actually still make an impact safely, competently, and professionally.
Most people would just give up.
Yes, and so that was a very strong passion that he had, and very strong. Even getting water to run the hospital for surgeries and so on,
my goodness.
was water, electricity, and so on was all a big issue, Yeah, so
I always tell next gens that, listen, we can think we have solutions and all, but you're standing on the shoulders of people that have
Yes.
gone through, and sacrificed the resilience needed to get businesses off the ground back then. We can't even begin to imagine. So just listening to this story, it's just another confirmation that kudos to the founders for what they've done. But this is beautiful. And so, wow. So your dad decides to do this, give up Switzerland and move back to Ghana, set up a business,
yes.
and go through everything. When did you join the business? What made you join the business? What was it like growing up with him, knowing he was in the hospital? How did it all happen? Talk us through the journey of how you ended up in the business, given everything that you said.
Well, I think we're probably naturally always part of the business in a way. We're always, part of some of the functions that they would have, some days when people would come, or when they would have a party, when he was setting up the space, would hear stories of the problems going on, and of course would visit, what he was doing. So, the hospital was never an alien place to us.
Mm-hmm.
It was always natural that, this is Sinel, and of course we would see things at home that would represent Sinel. Those days they used to make these calendars out of cloth. They'll print. I don't know. I think it was maybe some kind of screen printed calendars. So they'll screen print the calendar for the year, on cloth, on a piece of cloth, about maybe A3 size.
That's nice.
Something like that, so Sinel Specialist Hospital, and then the calendar for the year, and that was probably the promo material.
Getting it out there. Now we're doing big things.
Now we're doing so many different things. So we're kind of always into what the hospital was. Of course, we were not in the medical field at the time. When I say we, myself and my two sisters, we're also in that. So when it came the time to choose what to do, for me, it wasn't difficult to choose medicine as my chosen career. To me, it was not that, oh, my dad is a doctor, and so I need to be a doctor too. I think it was just the quiet example and the influence that would say, oh yeah, that's the path you could go, Then I was interested in doing medicine, and so I quickly got into medical school by God's grace. No, one did architecture, and my older sister did agric.
Okay.
Yes, that was also where their passion was. And
Yes,
they're very
so-
excellently good in those. My sister touches a plant and the plant comes back to life.
Wow.
She's
blessed. So
No, she's blessed. She's
so
blessed.
gifted hands.
Yes, it's massively gifted, and my younger sister who did architecture is also extremely artistic. But mine was medicine, and all through medical school, this support, the support was there. It was natural for me to, this medicine, it's nothing so difficult and challenging. We enjoyed it. We enjoyed it at the time. Of course, it was a massive challenge to get through medical school, but there was always that motivation to, internal motivation. And I must say, I never really went through medical school thinking that I'm doing this so that I could, participate in Sinel. That was never the primary goal. It was, this is what I'm interested in. And I think that's really important for family businesses, for us to realize that our children have their own interests. They have their own way of thinking. They have their own heartbeat, and that's really important. Otherwise, we will force them to do something that they really don't want to do.
They won't feel fulfilled.
And then they may not feel fulfilled.
Yeah.
So for me, that perspective from my side, and now I'm also thinking about, okay, so what's my succession from here going forward?
Should be thinking about it now.
Yes. But then when I finished medical school, it was time obviously to do housemanship, which was also interesting. Obviously, I did it in obstetrics and gynecology. And
what made you choose that though?
Because I thought that was the interesting part for me. It was a very exciting field. It was a field of internal medicine, which was, much of thinking and diagnosing and being intelligent. And then there was the part of the surgery part, which was more of action and let's get this done and, use your artistic and creative abilities to recreate. That's what surgery is. Surgery is art,
It is. I don't know how you guys do it. I watched Grey's Anatomy. That's how I'm able to
technical and it's art. And, it's quite interesting. And so for me, having those two things combined in one, and that's what obstetrics and gynecology is, and now I also major in fertility treatments. And that's also, bringing for me to completion all that, gives that rounded feel of a profession. And so when it came to choosing what residency to do, it was not difficult for me. And I naturally transitioned into that. I attended University of Ghana Medical School and then went on to do my obstetrics and gynecology membership and fellowship program at Korle Bu Teaching Hospital with the West Africa College of Surgeons. And that was a fantastic experience because you could really get to work. I mean, we did a lot of work, a huge volume of work, which was good for us for training, because being active and getting a volume of work to hands-on do was the thing in terms of being trained as an obstetrician gynecologist. So we did a lot of work, a lot of surgeries. We saw a lot of patients. We did long nights. We did 48-hour shifts and so on.
I don't know how you guys do it.
Those things were kind of interesting, but those were the training times.
Yeah.
And those things shaped us and gave us the competence to say, I can do this or this I cannot do. And that's probably the biggest thing you need to understand as a surgeon. What can you do and what can you not do? And to be able to say that, oh no, I can't do this. You should be able to say that. And so safety becomes always this. So I completed my training with in Korle Bu Teaching Hospital as an obstetrician gynecologist, and then went on to work with the University Hospital at Legon as their obstetrician gynecologist in-house. That was great because this was out of teaching hospital now.
Less
pressure. It was a different type of pressure.
Okay.
A different type of pressure because this was a much smaller hospital, had less resources as compared to Korle Bu Teaching Hospital, in various resources in various ways. And so what it brought out there was how to get organized, how to manage people, how to think about systems, how to bring out the best of whatever one had. And that was a great preparatory phase for me, I would say, for Sinel. at the time, I had started doing some work with my dad. We would, if there were surgeries, we would do them together. I would see a few patients. If there was anything to do, he would call me in. Oh, let's do this. So I was part in Sinel and part out of Sinel, and it was okay. It was working fine. Sinel was a much smaller institution than it was now. He was basically the only doctor. He had one or two other doctors. Dr. Fusu was supporting him from the surgical aspect, and so on, and his nursing team and so on. And it seemed to work well. But when you look at the business life cycle, which I'm sure you have studied, you see how it grows. It climbs the steps and it gets to that mature phase and kind of plateaus. And for some businesses, it could actually at that point start declining.
Yep.
For a number of reasons, because that's how the business life cycle is. And at that point, one needs to reinvent the business.
Yep.
And I noticed that point had come when a reinvention was needed. And so I decided that if I wanted to create or cause a reinvention of the business, it could not be done on a part-time basis. It had to be done on a full-time basis. And so that was a difficult decision in a way, because one had to leave current employment, structured everything, and come into and join an entrepreneur's journey. My dad was an entrepreneur.
Exactly.
He was not a serial entrepreneur. Yes, he did some farming, activities, but not much other. Most of his focus was being an entrepreneur in the health space. And he was a pioneer. He was doing cervical cancer screening at that time. He was doing laparoscopic surgery at that time. He was doing ultrasound. This was early 80s.
Okay.
This was early 80s.
Wow.
He was doing ultrasounds
in the 80s.
In the early 80s. That was amazing.
Yeah, one man is not.
Yes, he was repairing vesico-vaginal fistulas, VVFs.
Please speak English.
Yes, I intentionally said that so we'll get some complex medical terms. He was doing a lot of stuff in that time, and I think that was an entrepreneur in that space. And so now I was transitioning from, having been a training institution, having been in residency training, having been working for the university, now transitioning into to continue the journey that an entrepreneur had started. And that's what your show is all about. How does that transition happen?
Exactly.
You see,
I'm so excited.
How does that transition happen? And I don't think that transition has a clear path. Maybe it has some kind of broad categories or broad steps for sure, but every case is different.
Certainly.
And you need to understand where you stand, where you are from, and where you want to go. The first two are clear. The third sometimes can be very challenging.
Exactly.
And you need to address that with a vision mindset and be able to see things that don't exist yet. And I think that's what my dad had, because when he came to Ghana, none of what he envisaged existed. But I think he saw.
Maybe the exposure from outside helped as well, right?
Maybe. But I think he saw that, yes, in Ghana, he could actually achieve what he had seen in his mind's eye.
Yeah.
Yes, he had architects who had drawn some nice structures. That was beautiful, But I must say, we could never build that entire structure that was drawn at the time. But he built a part of that structure.
which you have.
which is our legacy building.
Yeah.
And that functioned beautifully. It was custom designed as a hospital. He started in a 3-bedroom house, and so when the design was being made for the hospital, he knew what he needed to have. And so the hospital was designed as a hospital. And I think that was really good because, I mean, simple things like the floor should have no steps anywhere in the facility.
Because
It's something that you can only know when you're working practically in hospital, things like that, and how to have exits and entrances, and how to lay out and so on. So I realized that I could not do this on a part-time basis. I needed to do a full-time switch. Let me call it, one of my mentors, Prof. Richard Adanu, said, it's like a leap in the dark. You need to take that leap, and you don't know where you are landing.
Yeah.
And so it takes a decision. Let me say it took a decision for me to actually take that leap. And together with my wife, we did take that decision.
You were married by then?
Yes.
When you took the leap?
No. Yes. At that time, I was married.
Wow.
Yes.
So then that definitely required, you thinking about it, because that means the salary is not coming like it should. There's a lot that's going to change in your lives.
There's a lot going on. There was a lot going on at that time. Yes.
Wow. You spoke to your wife, but aside that,
yes.
I'm just thinking, you noticed that the business was going a certain way and there was time for reinvention, right? But did you talk to your dad about it? How did he receive it? Because it's like you sitting back and auditing his business and deciding that, hey, it's time for change and all. And so I want to come in and help. Like, how did you present everything to him? How did he receive it? We want to be in the room with you guys. Take us back to the conversations with your dad.
He was a very intelligent person, both in intelligence of academics and stuff, but also very intelligent in situational awareness. What was happening. He was very intelligent in how to move from one space to the other. He was very intelligent in vision, how to see. And that was amazing. And so it wasn't, we never had a difficult conversation about should I come or should I not come? It was always, let me say, somehow an unanswered given that at one point I would come. and I think he was waiting for that time. And so it wasn't a difficult discussion to say, look, I want to do this full time now with you, because he understood where he was. He was happy. He was comfortable. He didn't have any problem. He was happy. He was happy with the way things were. It was very relaxed for him. He wasn't seeing a lot of patients. He wasn't overly stressed, and so on. But from the outside, you could see that it was no longer a vibrant, growing business at the time. It was a matured business that had gotten to its plateau and was just coasting along. Maybe fitting to the age of the entrepreneur, because he was also older and couldn't stand unnecessary stress. So it was easy to say, let's do this together. I want to come in. I want to work with you. I want to, see how we can move Sinel forward. So that happened. So on the 1st of January, 2010, I joined Sinel Specialist Hospital.
Wow.
Full time.
New year, new me. That's you.
Yes. That was what it was. And we built it from that point on. Building it was more well, there was more friction in building it than in coming in. So coming in was easy.
That's good.
But building it was more friction because now we had to change.
And change comes with a lot of.
And change comes with a lot of friction.
Yeah.
At the time, it was an entrepreneur and his hospital treating his patients. And now we are a corporate entity that has over 170 staff, that has expanded and doubled the floor space of the hospital, that has increased traffic multiple times over, and that has even attracted equity investment.
Oh, wow.
You know, and so what we have now is very different from the legacy from which we came.
Except you still have that family thing. The values have remained.
Values have remained. We have grown the business from a women's hospital to a family hospital.
That's awesome.
Which is the natural form something should grow, because we are seeing pregnant women before they get pregnant and challenges, and then we deliver babies.
Yes.
And those babies, in fact, we have a lot of babies who are delivered in Senel, and now 30 years later are coming to deliver their own.
Wow.
Yeah.
Full circle.
We see that grandmothers,
That's
you know, the three generations,
Yeah.
you know, in one hospital room. It's quite interesting to see.
you feel good when you see that, right?
We do.
Yay.
Yeah.
But I'm just curious. So maybe one more thing before we move on. When you joined, was your dad still working? Like, did you have to work with him, or did he take a step back, or how? What was the structure like?
He was fully functioning. He was fully in charge. He was fully working.
Okay.
And we started working together. But now he had to learn how to work with the next person, you know, the next authority.
Yeah.
Because suddenly I had become also an authority, you know, and he liked that because we could discuss stuff, we could argue, we could, you know, discuss. And that was nice. And he was always open to new ideas. One needed to understand how to present new things.
So important.
And I'm sure you know,
So
you mentioned a
important.
few things. You need to understand how to present new things. He wouldn't just take something just because, you know, oh, let's change this. No, there had to be a good reason. There had to be a proper proposition. There had to be a clear, you know, something that we're getting into.
It must be done well as well.
Yes, and I got to know him more, you know, how his thought pattern was. And so I'll use strategies like I'll send him a message about what I wanted to do first. You know, I wouldn't just approach him and say, hey, let's do this. No, I would say, you know, send a message and say, I think we should look at this, that, and the other. We could actually achieve something more in this area. Think about this. Okay.
And then you drop
and then he will think about it. It could be a written, you know, letter, you know, a note or a concept paper, you know, written, or just the idea scribbled. Or it could be a message, you know, on a smartphone, just sent over to him, and then he would think about it, and then when we then discuss it, he becomes more open.
Because he's also informed, right?
Yes, because he's informed. But when you go straight away and say, Daddy, we need to do this, you know, then there'll be, let me say, unnecessary and unreasonable resistance.
Yeah. Because
those who know, they know.
Exactly.
You know, but then when he understands and he has that opportunity to consider it on a neutral ground, which a paper or a message would give.
The emotions are not there.
Then the emotions are put aside, and he immediately switches into his visionary mode. And so my strategy was how to get him to switch into the visionary mode.
Next gens, are you listening?
how can I get him to switch into that vision? Because he was a visionary. He could see and he could say, I want this done, you know, and then he would do it. And so being able to get him back into that mode was always my objective. So send him a message, send him a plan, start a discussion, or show him something. And he'll pick up that. And then he would say, yes, this is good. Let's do it this way.
I was going to ask you if, this works so well because you're both men. But now, as you talk, I'm like, no, it's a strategy. You need to understand who you're dealing with. And really, in all aspects of life, just understand who you're dealing with and speak the right language to get things across. So that's really interesting. Now, I'm just curious. So the two guys in the family are doing this. Your mom, you said your mom was also or a partner in the business.
My mom is a nurse.
Your mom is
she trained as a nurse.
So then that's
worked
what.
As a nurse, yes.
Okay, so
she didn't work in Sinel though.
Why?
No, I think that and when they was started, this was, what did I say, 82?
Yeah.
We were also younger.
Oh, so she had to.
We were also younger, and she was also taking care of the home at the time. And she didn't have that full hands-on in the hospital at the time, But that's how they met, of course, because she was a nurse. They met in the hospital.
Should we ask where you met your wife?
My wife?
Yes.
I met my wife in church.
Okay, that's another place.
So that's another
where you
story.
hang. Okay.
Yeah, that's another story.
All right. But
yes.
But I'm just curious so in terms of your family with your two sisters, what was the family structure like? Did they feel left out at all? Because now it's like the two men are talking business, they're talking hospital. How was the family dynamics like?
No, I don't think so. I think it was. I was the one who did medicine, so it looked natural. The others did other things. They were also engaged in many things that they were doing for themselves, and so I think it was more of a natural transition and something that seemed natural and normal in the family. I don't think I never felt there was any power struggle.
Okay.
Some of the things that happen in family businesses, I don't know, could we call that a family business? Yes, it turned into a family business. That it was a family business probably from the beginning in principle.
Yes, with the husband and wife.
One of the things that we did was to change the shareholding.
Okay. Which is key. Those things are important. Yeah.
Which is key,
Yes.
And that's why I say he was an extreme visionary. He understood.
Yes.
He was an emotional one too, but he had a lot of vision. And so one of the things he achieved was to change the shareholding structure of the company to include myself,
and that's what,
to include my sisters, and that was interesting.
That's a game changer.
Exactly. And that addressed, I think that addressed on a quiet and emotional side, the question that you asked. Was there a rift? No, there was no rift because the ownership structure was still there.
Yes. That's what people miss. I feel like that's what leads to a lot of conflicts, be open about it. And even for you, yes, you have a passion for what you're doing, but really maybe knowing that, hey, this belongs to me. This is my future. It probably, motivated you to do more. So that's really good. God bless your dad again, because that's a major problem for most next gens. Like, I'm doing this, but there's always that risk of what happens next. You can, my dad says you stop saying that, but you need to make sure you have the right structures in place. Those key things matter. And sometimes you can bring up the conversation because someone's like, why do you have your eyes on the prize? Like things like that. So this is very important. So kudos to your dad. Now, I want to switch, but I want to ask a question before that. So now you're CEO of Sinel and you're a doctor. And how does it work? I always wonder, it's one thing to be a doctor, have the passion, you've been trained for it, you're doing all this. But now you're running a business as well. You're running an organization. How does it feel wearing those two hats? What has the journey been like for you since you joined Sinel? Since you became CEO of Sinel?
Yeah. That's a good question. I think my role in Sinel is twofold. I stand in the shareholding space and the board space and the executive side. And management as well.
Yeah.
But I also stand in the clinical aspect. actually getting the work done.
Done. Yep.
You see, that is a difficult combination because it's a lot of work, especially if you are growing at the rate that Sinel is growing. I think Sinel is one of the fastest growing hospitals in Ghana. And that is not very easy to manage and navigate, doing both clinical work and also doing management. And so two of the things that we have now are a very strong management team, where we have people who are taking up the huge things, the finance, the human resource and admin, the medical coordination, the medical director section, the pharmacy, the lab, the client service marketing, the nursing. All these areas are being handled by very competent people. And we meet weekly. We meet, it's a whole corporate space that we operate. And so that manages. And then the rest of the time is spent on actually seeing patients.
Which is key.
Seeing patients. So there's twofold there. So seeing patients and then training, offering training for doctors and other cadres. And that takes probably, let me say that takes probably about 60% of the time.
Wow.
Or maybe even more, maybe about 60%, yes. So getting the work done, ensuring patients are seen, actually seeing patients, bringing up innovations, and recently we are doing much more training and building capacity in the junior doctors. Yes, because we're also thinking about succession. We're also thinking about how things will grow. And so now we have a huge team. We probably have over 40 doctors in the hospital in various grades and in various capacities, some full-time, some part-time, and so on. So we have people on the ground to get the work done, even if I'm not physically present. And that is a good achievement because it allows me to become more effective, both on the clinical and teaching side and also on the management side. Yeah.
Good job. Because you're thinking succession. I won't put you on the spot and ask about, in thinking succession, what about your children and your, when it comes to your siblings as well, their children, is anybody interested in medicine at all? Have you had those conversations?
There is interest in various areas. I mean, they're all doing different things. And it's difficult to say exactly what the entire clan would do. For my children, I have 3 girls. They all seem quite interested and excited about what Georgette and I are doing. But they're also excited in what they have in mind and what they want to do. And want them to follow, what makes sense for them. But we try to integrate them in what we are doing, let them see what is happening.
Yeah.
Occasionally some of them come to the hospital to do some internship or whatever, and that's quite interesting to see the interest peak and then go down. And then, and we are waiting. We'll see how it goes. My second daughter is doing medicine. And she's very excited about Senel. And I think she sees herself as part of Senel going into the future. And so I think that there's a very strong pull there.
Are you whispering behind the scenes, or are you just leaving her to discover on her own?
No. I mean, we talk about, so in the family, we talk about succession.
Okay. That's good. You have the conversations, the difficult conversation.
No, it's not a difficult conversation as long as you don't insist that your word be the final.
Okay.
Then it becomes an easy conversation.
You can let your wish out there and let them decide.
You can say, hey, this needs to be done. Will you do it? Hey, these are the advantages of being in this space, But I think that we need to find, I mean, I don't have the solution to succession. Yes, I went through succession in being the one who came in to succeed. And for me, I realized that in that space, for me, the most important part there was myself. What did I want to do? And how could I achieve what I wanted to do? Not so much, what did daddy want?
Yes.
For me, that was not the biggest thing. Maybe what did daddy need was a bigger,
identified it.
yes, was a bigger factor than what did daddy want.
Yeah.
And then what did daddy actually allow to happen? Was probably also the second important thing.
Because you have walked the journey now, you're able to appreciate things better when it comes to
so that's one aspect. But now the other aspect is that how do you do it from the other side? Where you now need somebody to succeed you.
So now you are daddy.
Exactly. So I realized that, well, it really depends on the people who are coming in, the children, the nephews and nieces, and so on. We'll see what happens. I think it's, remember, we put these things to prayer as well.
Yes.
Okay. And God has a certain plan and a certain action and that will happen. And we don't know the entire plan yet.
Exactly.
But I believe that something will happen, something really positive will happen, that the children will take up their advantage. They will take up their opportunities. And they will still be fulfilled as people.
Yes.
And I think exciting days ahead for me. And that is why, for me, I think conversation about succession are not difficult. We can talk about it. We can say, hey, you should come to do this, come and see what's going on here. What plans do you have for Sinel? What plans do you have for Vine?
Yeah.
I think it does put some pressure on them, though. And, but it gives an opportunity to speak as well, and the road is clear for them, to do what fits them. Yeah.
Okay, so we've been talking a lot about Sinel, but I know that you wear two hats, and really, I'm wondering, on the 1st of January 2010, when you decided to move to Sinel, I mean, you also had a business. You have a business with your wife, right, Georgette McCarthy.
Yes.
And you're running an amazing school, also growing very fast.
Yeah.
So Vine Christian School, Vine Christian High School. Now, I'm just curious, how do you wear the two hats? But more importantly, one of the things we've been focusing on as well is husbands and wives working together. And so if you had this dream with your wife and then now you're doing this, just talk us through that aspect of you working with Georgette on Vine, doing so well. I mean, I don't know how you I don't know how you manage your time, but you guys are doing something great. So what was it like making this decision? I talked about you were moving from, the Legon Hospital. That meant your salary and all that. But there was a lot more at stake because why didn't you leave and go help her with Vine? Vine is 20 years, right?
Vine is 20. Georgette and myself started Vine Christian School in 2005. So that's like 21 years, right? Almost now.
You choose to.
Almost now. We just
daddy.
celebrated our 20th anniversary as a school, but we started this in 2005 together as equal partners to set up a Christian school. That would be an extension of people's homes, to strengthen the Christian education that parents were already giving their children at home. And so that was the vision we started with. And we started really small, basically with one classroom, a small office. I think the office was not bigger than this table.
Wow.
Something like that. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but maybe not. And a little kitchen, a washroom, and that was the school. And we were excited. We were passionate. We had the vision,
Yeah.
And people would come in and look and say, "Oh, this is very beautiful," and they would never return.
They'll judge you.
In fact, I think we have people who came back later. A few people who came back later and then enrolled.
Oh.
But anyway, so we set that up, and that was our vision. It was a joint vision that we had together. She's an educator, and so it was natural for us to say, "Hey, let's set up a school," and then having this vision as well for it to be a Christian school was awesome and gave us a lot of perspective. So we set that up together. At the time, Sinel was already running, obviously, because Sinel is twice the age of Vine. Maybe not twice now a little less. But we set it up together on equal footing. Obviously, we were going to do very different things and tasks within what we had set up as Vine Christian School. She was the educator, so she was doing the education, and I was doing the other things to get the thing to work and to grow. And so together with that collaboration and putting our strengths together, we were able to grow the school gradually, one classroom at a time, one student at a time, from nothing to what it is now. Yes.
A huge edifice.
Yeah.
That's
working together as husband and wife.
Yes, please. We want to know.
I think it's an interesting thing, and it's a good thing if you can work with your marriage partner.
Sure. Because
it helps to grow the relationship. It helps to grow the relationship. You are forced to recognize different things about your wife or your husband, to appreciate different things, to see different conflicts and so on. And you have to navigate them, and you have to manage them, and you have to work through them. It also tests certain marriage principles. For example, the marriage principle of it's now our money and not my money and your money.
Yeah.
That we teach, and it shows you in a practical way how to get that done, and it shows you the advantages of that, and it shows you how explosive that principle is in a marriage, because it immediately propels you much faster, when you do that. So working together in that way helps us to build our marriage as well.
Yeah.
But it also helps us to build the business, because we have the vision, and we can work together, we can discuss it, we can understand. In fact, we needed to, at a point, create a 9 p.m. rule where we would say that no Vine Christian School discussion after 9 p.m.
Can we just be a family?
Yes, otherwise the conversations are going on, past midnight and so on. And of course, that will put a stress on a marriage relationship. Yes. And so at the point, we had a 9 p.m. rule.
So you had a structure.
So we had a structure. Yeah. And even now we have a structure, what do I do? What does she do? When do I come in? When does she come in? And, we actually continue to work together. And I think our strengths together are much more explosive than our strengths separated. Yes.
That's great. But I think just in listening to you, what I'm getting from it when it comes to working as a couple is, it requires maturity and also just having the systems in place. But of course, the first thing is having that unified vision, because if you're not on the same page, you just keep clashing. So kudos to you. I mean, Vine is doing amazing stuff, and we know it's just going to get bigger, better, greater, all the good stuff. So keep going at it.
Thank you.
Now,
thank you.
I'm just listening to you. I'm like, you should be writing books, please. There's so much that we can draw from you. But just looking at your journey, right? Is there anything you would change? Because your family business is stressful, and you're doing it on 2 different levels, really.
Oh, I mean, what I would change is if we're probably born with a trunk full of gold, as the starting at the starting line, that would have probably been easier.
With the same conditions, what would you
conditions, choose? And then I have a pot of gold that you could just, say, oh, we need cash for this. We need to hire a new teacher. We need to buy new equipment for the hospital,
Yeah.
So maybe that's what we would change, because the truth is that an entrepreneur's journey is very difficult stuff. Very difficult, because Sometimes nobody believes in what you are doing. They all come and smile and say, "Hey, okay." All right. But getting into it becomes very difficult. And so that has been a big challenge. But I give thanks to a lot of people who have helped us along the way. People who have been able to understand our vision, both in Vine and in Sinel. Some have contributed time, some have contributed resources, some have contributed their consultancy hours to us for free. Some have done professional work for us for free. People lend us money, and at no interest rate or at very minimal interest rates. And, I mean, sometimes it was even difficult to pay salaries.
Yeah.
You'd have to go and ask your friend, can I get this? I'll pay you next month,
Yeah.
And what were we going to use that money for? We used to pay somebody's salary.
Yeah.
And that was tough. I mean, those were the days that we were not being paid salary. We were not paying ourselves a salary, neither from the hospital nor from the school.
Tough time.
And very tough. And you could understand that was actually very challenging, but that's what molds you and that's what makes you stronger. And then you understand, okay, so this is what we need to do.
Yeah.
This really works and this does not work. And so we learned how to handle money as well.
Yeah.
And grow it slowly, use it well, use it judiciously, use what you have and build on your strengths. And then get people to help.
Yes.
People are always ready to help.
Don't be afraid to ask for it.
If you have a vision, if you have a certain thing you want to do and they can help, most people will actually step in and give a helping hand. Yeah.
Amazing. I mean, and just listening to you when you said about the tough times, that's when that passion, that vision, like you hold on to it.
The vision
right?
drives you, yes.
So if it's money you came in for, then that's when you just
you
up and
stop.
say bye. So that's good. And I guess that's why it's so important for family businesses that you need to have next gens that are passionate about the work, right? That are passionate to run with the vision, to be in the business, because if you just force them to be in there, when tough times come, they could just, walk away. So this has been a very exciting conversation. I've learned a lot. I'm still not sure if I would want to work with my husband, but I have learned so much from you. So thank you very much. Before we wrap things up, I want you to give an advice, because now by being second generation and working on succession as well, it means you're also, you're a founder somehow. But give an advice to founders, and then give an advice to next gens as well, and give an advice to couples working together. So you get 3. Usually give 2, but I think you're special.
Let's take them one at a time.
Yes. So please give an advice to founders, people that have businesses, that have started businesses. What advice would you give them? So your dad's classmates, what would you advise them? That
Well, I think that anyone who has founded a business needs to decide on the life cycle of that business.
okay.
It's not every business that needs succession. Some businesses need to end. And so you need to first of all decide whether your business needs to go to the next generation or whether your business should rather end, depending on your vision, why you set it up, your circumstances, and what you want to do, and so on. So you need to be first of all clear with how is this going to end? How should it end? What was my vision? What was, and take a decision on how that should go. Otherwise, you become unnecessarily distraught if you are trying to follow what others expect you to do.
Mm-hmm.
So do what you think you have to do. Plan for what you have to do. And then ask God to show you how to succeed. And then follow that plan.
So good. Wow. Does every business need succession? That's a good one. Thank you so much. Okay, so now the next gens, my classmates, and really your classmates, those taking over from their parents.
I think that my advice is make use of the opportunities. I stood on the shoulders of a giant. And that is what Sinel is built upon. Sinel is built upon the legacy of Dr. T.O. McCarthy and Mrs. Nellie McCarthy. It stands on what they built, what they poured out their life for. And that is huge. In fact, you cannot buy that. Money cannot give that. And so you need to appreciate and stand on the shoulders of those giants. And suddenly, you see far.
True, because
You will see far. You see things that you have never seen before. That's my advice to them.
Dr. McCarthy, you're deep. I'm really loving the advice. Okay, final advice to married couples working together.
I think that my advice for married couples is live what God made you to be as a couple. God said they became one flesh. That means they became one in everything. Use that as your advantage. In life, we always use our advantages. We don't use our weaknesses. We use our advantages. And that is the biggest advantage of a married couple. That oneness. There's no other relationship that causes that oneness.
Yeah.
And so you are unique as a married couple. And you need to use that oneness. Nobody else can give it to you. You know, your friend, your business partner, nobody can give you that oneness.
Yeah.
And so you need to make use of it in your passion, in your business, in your venture, in your philanthropy,
Yeah.
rather than stay separate. You're not made to be separate as a couple. You're made to be one. You're meant to be one.
I love how you're smiling as you give this advice. Oh, Dr. McCarthy, thank you so much. We have learned a lot. I'm speaking on behalf of our audience. This has been really good.
Thank you.
Thank you
You're
so
welcome.
much for honoring our invitation and for pouring out. We are so grateful. We'll come back for more later. Trust me.
You're welcome, Mary. I'm happy that you chose us to be a part of this. On behalf of Georgette McCarthy and myself, I say thank you for choosing us and taking our story
You have a
and
beautiful
using it to
story.
bless others.
You have a beautiful
done.
story. Thank you. Thank you. To our audience, thank you very much for joining us on this episode of Family Business Diaries. I hope you took some good notes because this has been a very rich conversation. Now, remember that we release new episodes monthly and you can find us on all podcast streaming platforms at Family Business Diaries. You can find us on YouTube at Family Business Diaries. On social media, we are familybusinesshub.gh, and you can check us out on our website, www.familybusinesshub.co. See you on the next episode. Bye.